ahead and seeing that we have all the counselors, I'll call this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, will you please join me in a moment of silence for Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who passed over the weekend. Thank you for that. We've done a couple of those here, too many of those over the last year and a half for many individuals who've conducted a lifetime of service. Justice Ginsburg certainly there, making an incredible difference in the lives of women throughout our country and the world. I know as a father of two little girls, I'm especially appreciative for all for our efforts over the last several decades of service to our country. With that, Jeff, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Councillor Petzold.
Here.
Councillor Smallwood.
Here.
Councillor Hamblin.
Here.
Councillor Lee.
Here.
Councillor Exner.
Here.
Councillor Schultz.
Here.
Mayor Pulliam.
Here. Per usual, I'll go ahead and start with a quick review of tonight's agenda. We'll start with calling for any changes to the agenda. We'll then go into our public comment period. Please note there is a separate opportunity on tonight's agenda to comment on a proposed development code change, and there will be a public hearing for that during this meeting. That is for Ordinance 2020-24 under 7.1 of this agenda. Other than that one item, this public comment portion will be the portion of our meeting tonight for those from our community who would like to step forward and give public testimony. Please note that when council welcomes your comments as well on other topics at the time. You'll want to dial the raised hand button and wait to be recognized, or if you're participating via telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be recognized. We'll then go into our consent agenda, which has our city council minutes as well as an amendment to the agreement with Skyview Acres Water Company. We'll then go to ordinance and have that public hearing that I mentioned earlier. Then we'll go to new business, have a discussion on a code of conduct for our boards and commissions. We'll then go to our city manager report, followed by our councilor committee and councilor reports. We'll then adjourn the meeting for this evening. With that, is there any changes to tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move forward to public comment. Again, if you want to speak on the development code changes later in tonight's agenda, that's when you want to do that. Otherwise, you're more than welcome to participate now. Please mark the raised hand button and wait to be recognized. Or if you're participating via telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be recognized. Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, Mayor, just taking a look at the list of attendees. And Mayor, I do not see any raised hands.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. With that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. I'm open for discussion or looking for a motion.
I'll move to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
There's been a motion from Councilor Schultz and a second from Councilor Hamlin that we adopt the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye or give me a thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, or a thumbs down. Motion carries. Moving on to ordinances. This is a public hearing. I'll have to open up my script here. All right, I'm going to start with instructions for testimony for the virtual public hearing. Public testimony for this hearing will be called for in 3 groups: testimony in favor of the proposal, testimony opposed to the proposal, and neutral testimony. If you're participating online, click the raise hand button at the appropriate time and wait to be recognized. If you're participating via telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand at the appropriate time and wait to be recognized. I will now open this public hearing, ordinance number 2020-24 at 7:05. Any abstentions from the hearing body? Seeing none, I will now call for any conflicts of interest from the hearing body.
None.
Seeing none, I will now call for the staff report. Emily.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. And I'm assuming you can see that.
Yes.
So tonight we are looking at code modifications to chapter 1710, which is our definitions chapter, 1784, which is improvements required with development, and 17100, which is land divisions. And this is largely in response to Bailey Meadows and trying to prevent a second Bailey Meadows subdivision, or the issues that we encountered, I should say, related to more traffic on a local street than our TSP would allow. So currently the standards are in our TSP. The main goal of these code amendments was to incorporate the average daily traffic standards into the development code so that they're not just in the TSP. Our current development code does not contain a clear and objective criterion that requires subdivisions and other land division applications to adhere to the ADT standards for local streets. So that is what the intent of these code changes is. We are also adding clear and objective language related to transportation impact studies, which kind of goes hand in hand with the ADT standards as well. And we worked very, very closely. In fact, really a majority of the code amendments were written and drafted by both our city attorney, David Dufman, and our transportation engineer, John Replinger, who are both on the line tonight. So a majority of questions you have, if you have any, would likely be directed to them. But I'll go through kind of a brief overview of the changes. Just quickly to kind of dive into the average daily traffic a little bit more. Essentially what happened with Bailey Meadows is on the left, we have a development without ADT standards. So you have, say one street, for example, Melissa Avenue, and all of the traffic then would go down that street. By adding in the ADT standards, you can spread the traffic out, or that is the intent, at least to have additional streets that can handle additional traffic so that any one local street does not exceed the average daily traffic maximum. So in chapter 1710, which is our definitions, we added a definition of average daily traffic. Within the street classification section that talks about local streets, we added an ADT limit that's clear and objective, and that's just taking the limit that's already in our TSP and putting it into the development code. We revised language regarding green streets also to be clear and objective. And then there's other just housekeeping amendments, kind of some grammar stuff. The Planning Commission requested that we, as we're updating each code section from here on out, that we start to update with using gender neutral terminology. So we did that throughout the 3 code sections here tonight. In chapter 1784, which is improvements required with development, we revised the cul-de-sac standard to be clear and objective. We also added clear and objective language related to transportation impact studies. This is the main change to this chapter, and it breaks it down into the residential needed housing applications and then non-residential, which does not need to be as clear and objective. And then again, there's just other housekeeping amendments that are mostly grammatical or the gender neutral terminology. Chapter 17100, which is land divisions. We added compliance with ADT standards on local streets, and our transportation engineer could go into it more, but originally we had proposed adding the ADT standards on all of the streets, but we found out that they're typically only really applied to local streets. So we added it just to the local streets. We did exempt the ADT standard compliance on local streets for outright permitted uses or permitted development within the central business district. Without that exemption, the redevelopment of Pleasant Street would be difficult. The proposed language only exempts outright permitted uses. It would be kind of a council call if we wanted to also exempt conditional uses. So that's one thing that you may want to discuss tonight. The code amendments also increase the tentative plat approval for a subdivision to 2 years with the ability for the director to grant an additional 1-year extension. This kind of clarified the process that's in place. Staff had originally proposed a second extension that could be granted by the Planning Commission, but the Planning Commission recommended only allowing the 1 extension so that the plat approval would be for 3 years total and not 4 years total. We also added some clarification to the street signs, street surfacing, street lighting, bonds, and performance guarantee sections. And these are mostly, again, to kind of reflect the current processes, and it's more of kind of some public works standards. And then, of course, the housekeeping amendments. So our recommendation is that you hold the public hearing tonight and that you approve the proposed modifications to chapters 1710, 1784, and 17100. And again, we do have John Replinger, our city transportation engineer, on the line, as David Doofman, our city attorney. And like I mentioned, they drafted most of this code language, so questions would most likely be directed to them rather than staff. And then I think Kelly had a few things he wanted to add as well.
Thank you. Mr. O'Neill.
Yeah, this is Kelly. I just basically wanted to reiterate kind of what Emily already said, but that the hope or the intention of the majority of the changes is to prevent a subdivision similar to what we experienced with Bailey Meadows before we required that Gunderson Road be extended out to Highway 211. We're just really trying to limit the ability of a large subdivision to impact local streets. So the code changes that are before you tonight, combined with the code changes that we recently adopted for annexations, we feel that those 2 code adoptions, the one that you've already adopted for annexations and the one before you tonight, will give us the best chance possible to avoid a situation similar to Bailey Meadows. And why I say the best chance possible is because there's always changing case law. As we know, part of what developers and their attorneys get paid to do is to find new exemptions or new things within standards or within codes that allow them to develop easier and at lower costs. And I'm not trying to put any blame on developers or their attorneys for that. That's kind of what they're tasked to do. So with these changes and with the annexation code changes, we can't promise that we won't run into another clear and objective situation or something else that we don't see coming. But what we do hope is that it won't be transportation related. And as we continue to go through the different code sections within the Sandy Municipal Code, we'll be trying to add clear and objective language wherever possible to avoid such a reoccurrence occurring. So can't promise this is going to be the, the one fix for everything, but I think it's a step in the right direction, and I think it will fix the transportation issues that we're faced with recently.
Thank you, Kelly. Is there any questions from council for staff before we go into public testimony? Councilor Lee.
Yes, there was just one section, 17.100.900, and it removes the ability for the developer to pay for signs with some new language. And I'm thinking you probably intend for that new language to still require that it would be the developer's cost.
That would actually have to be answered by Mike Walker. I thought I saw him on there, but I'm not seeing him now. I honestly don't know who right now pays for the sign costs. It used to be the developer. I think that might have changed in the last 5 years. But that was actually a proposed recommendation for modification from the Public Works Director. So I would have to defer to him if he's back on the line in a little bit.
Kelly, so you're pretty spotty. I'm trying to hear you. You sound a little bit like Darth Vader. That said, I let you keep going because we could make out about 90% of what you said.
I don't know why that is. That's really weird. I don't have. Oh, weird.
It sometimes sounds like somebody swallowed the microphone.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I sound like Darth Vader. That's better than sounding like some other character.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, Mike Walker would have to answer that question. I don't know the answer to it.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks.
Councilor Peetzold.
Yeah, sorry there. My computer monitor all went wacky at the same time. I thought it was my computer when Kelly was speaking. So then I lost the monitor all at the same time. So technical difficulties. Just a couple questions on that. I noticed changing other types of language in there, and some of them you speak to the broadband fiber that we require for developers to put in, but then we miss it in other locations, like Exhibit F 17.100.0 is one location, but it's in 17.84.60, which is public facility extensions. So we mentioned sewer, wastewater, storm, but not our fiber infrastructure that we've had in place for quite a while. That's definitely benefited our city. And then mentioned 17.100.260. Let me scroll down there. And then in 17.100.310K, where is my scroller? Sorry. So we could add it in the 17.100.0, the intent, because it's not in there. Then we mentioned all the other utilities.
Yeah, we'd be happy to add that.
And then 17.100.260, I'm scrolling down. Where is it? Sometimes it's hard to scroll through this. Sometimes it's easier on paper. Come on, get down there. 220 to 60. Yeah, the undergrounding utilities. You have in there limited to electrical and telephone wiring, which is kind of dated in itself, but not limited to. So that covers it all. But it would be nice to have fiber and cable as well, just to make sure we cover our bases.
Yeah, I agree that those would be good additions.
And then 17.100.310 K, we have the undergrounding, including broadband. So that was just a reference that we have it in some places, but not others. So yeah, if you don't mind, and I might have missed some while going through all this because it was pretty heavy to digest.
Jeff, Kelly, can you guys have that ready to be in an amendment if we need it later in the public hearing? You know what I mean? Someone's probably going to want to propose something with that as amended on, if we could kind of have that tightened up for us.
I mean, David Doofman could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you could make a motion if you so choose to adopt the ordinance with part of the motion being that those sections would be revised to reflect that.
Okay, that's what we'll do. Thank you.
Yeah, the motion could be, I think what we'd want to do is make sure that the second reading reflects those changes. And so I think part of that is a timing issue as to whether we can get some of those, put in, tonight, or whether we take a second reading back to the council. I don't know what the capability of making those edits are remotely. That's all on the city side.
Well, why don't you guys think about it while we proceed through this, and then kind of update council on your recommendation when we get to that point, if that's okay.
Sure.
I see Councilor Exner with a question.
Yeah, more of just an understanding on, I'll have to get to the number again, 17-10-33 underneath residential minor arterial roads. We're changing them from the right-of-way width from 38 feet to 62 as a minimum, and a maximum of was 50 feet to 82. Can you give me some background in why we increased that right-of-way width just about twice, not quite twice what it was before? Is there a rationale for that?
Looking at you, Emily, or Kelly, probably.
I'm scrolling to the section right now to see if I can find it.
Page 106.
I'm not the only one that has to figure out what's scrolling through this thing.
Yeah, go to 106 page, and then it's number C. You had quite a bit of changes in this area.
Yeah, so before it read the paved width is just the curb to curb, but to include the entire right of way, which is how our TSP refers to it, it just changed. So that's just what's in our TSP for right of way width. But I don't know why it had paved width for some, I think, and right of way for others.
So
I don't know, I guess
just
it just had paved for that.
so this one, the new one, is for just the entire right of way, paved as well as.
Exactly. So it includes the sidewalk and the planter strip and the curb
Okay,
and all of
all
that.
right, all right.
Yeah.
So that makes some sense. All right.
And
that's
those
all.
are just taken directly out of the TSP, all of those numbers.
Okay. All right. I wish I could tell you that I remembered those numbers, but there's no way. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other further questions, or we'll go into public testimony? Okay. All right, we will now go into public testimony. Please try to avoid repetition if someone else has already expressed the same thoughts. It is sufficient to state that you agree with the statements of a previous speaker, even if that's all you say. If you have documents, maps, or letters that you wish to have considered by the body, they must formally be placed into the record of this proceeding. To do that, either before or after you speak, email your materials to recorder@ci.sandy.or.us, and staff will make sure your evidence is properly processed. As a reminder, testimony for this public hearing will be called for in 3 groups: testimony in favor of the proposal, testimony opposed to the proposal, and neutral testimony. If you're participating online, click the raise hand button at the appropriate time and wait to be recognized. If you're participating via telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand at the appropriate time and wait to be recognized. I will now call on testimony in favor of the proposal. Please remember to state your name and mailing address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes each. Jeff.
Mayor, just taking a look. And I do not see any raised hands.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. I'm now calling on testimony against the proposal. Just a reminder to state your name and mailing address for the record. You will have 3 minutes.
And I do not see any raised hands.
All right, thank you. I am now calling on neutral testimony. These are general comments, neither for nor against the proposal. And just a reminder to state your name and mailing address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes.
And I do not see any raised hands.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate that. I am now looking for a staff recap and recommendation. Emily.
I don't have much of a recap. If you do have questions for either David or John Roblinger, I would recommend you ask them those questions. I'm currently, as you guys are discussing, trying to work on updating the code right now to maybe get you a draft of that. So I have it in track changes, just adding the fiber and broadband. And in a few minutes, I could maybe share my screen and just show it to you or something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, one thing I would stress is one of the reasons why we did this by emergency, which we often don't do ordinances by emergency, especially development code ordinances, but we've had a lot of pre-apps recently, probably the most since I've ever worked here this year. And what we're trying to do is we would really like to, it doesn't sound like there's any big holdups tonight, at least from the questions that have been asked so far. And we're really wanting to adopt it tonight so that if an application does come in, these standards are applicable tomorrow or tonight when it's basically signed by Mayor Pulliam, just on the off chance of a new subdivision coming in and in the next couple of weeks before the next council hearing.
Thank you. Okay.
Logistically speaking, if we are able to make those edits, quickly, I can post it to the public agenda. Mayor, if you could maybe even just give me a 2 or 3 minute recess, I could do that. If we're able to get that document, that way it's totally transparent for everyone.
Totally. Do you guys want to go into questions and discussion first, and then we'll just do a recess at the end of that? Okay, let's go. At first, I'm going to look for a motion to close this public hearing.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Second that.
A motion from Counselor Exner that we close the public hearing. Counselor Hamlin is on fire tonight.
I'll give it to him.
Second in a row. All those in favor signify by saying aye or give me a thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, or a thumbs down. Motion carries. All right, I'm looking for discussion from the hearing body. Counselor Exner.
This is mostly a cleanup kind of a suggestion, because I'm really excited about seeing this thing being put together to prevent anything more of the Bailey Meadows kind of a event. Really make sure that happens. Again, nobody can guarantee that you won't find some lawyer who will find a way. It seems like that's their style. But one of the questions I'd have for either Kelly or Emily, in that the city has a lot of, and there's several cleanup statements about the sidewalks and such. We have several sidewalks within the city that are less than the standards that we're talking about, including now in the cleanup. We're talking 5 foot and 6 foot in some cases. I can think of one in particular that we just did over here on McCormick Court. I think it's a 3 foot wide piece because there aren't the green space between the owner's lawn and the curbs. And I'm just wondering, what's our format for being able to clean up those sidewalks that are just not up to standards? How do we incorporate that into our future work as we go along? In some of the areas we don't see a lot of development.
So if the property, let me see if I can answer this appropriately. If the property redevelops, we do have a mechanism in chapter 15, I believe it's 1520, don't quote me on that, but it's in chapter 15, and basically if the improvement value is more than 50% of the existing improvement value. So if, say you do an addition to your house and it's the value of the addition's 50% or greater than the actual cost or the value of the existing house, then it could trigger improvements such as bringing sidewalks up to the appropriate standard for width. However, we are pretty friendly about that. I'll be very honest. If you had a 3 foot sidewalk, I think we would typically try to get it to at least 4 feet. But if you have a 4 foot sidewalk, there's probably not many circumstances, unless you're turning like a 1 acre parcel into a subdivision or something substantial like that, where we'd make it come into full compliance. So that's really kind of a policy call for you guys, like how aggressive you'd want us to get with that. But like, for instance, I used to live in a house in Sandy on Long Circle that had 5 foot wide sidewalks with a 3 foot wide planter strip. And as you guys know, with a 3 foot wide planter strip with large street trees, it starts to uproot all of the sidewalks. But to make that a 5 foot planter strip per our code standards, we would either have to move the curbs in, or we would have to get additional right-of-way dedication and then rip out sidewalks. So it could be a very complicated and expensive process to do it for like each individual house.
The ones I see on McCormick Court, I'm not sure you can get a wheelchair between some of the mailboxes and the edge of the sidewalk on either side on the owner's property line. And so what I'm seeing a lot, because I walk down, I don't have 3,000 days of running behind me. I do 3,000 days of walking my 4 blocks to my post office store. And I see a lot of people just not walking the sidewalk, especially strollers. I haven't seen too many wheelchairs, but a few, and they're all on the road. And it just seems to me that we've got an issue here that happens. How long has the city been in business? 100 years, where some of these sidewalks are just woefully in a vision.
Yeah, so that issue with obstructions, there is some gray area there, but I would actually argue that if we know of obstructions, we either need to do it through code enforcement or we need to remedy the situation ourselves. So just as an example, recently on Bluff Road, the Public Works Department did a project to remove a bunch of obstructions on the east side of Bluff Road. And then they actually did a lot of combined mailboxes with additional concrete work. And then also on the highway by Jiffy Lube and KFC through urban renewal, we just recently took care of a few where we only had like 26 inches of right away around the mailboxes. So it's a policy question, but if we are running into instances where there's not a clear path, we should be actually enforcing ADA requirements for the ADA, the federal standards.
Okay, right.
It might take a future project, maybe a future council goal, to look at areas where Stan shook his head.
We keep those goals limited.
I know, but it is something that's actually been in my mind too, Carl, because I walk around town or jog around town sometimes, and there are a lot of obstructions in our sidewalks. So it's a good point.
Yeah, I know a lot of the post office desires to go to these gang post office boxes, and that would help a lot. But you got those things seem to be the biggest issue from what I viewpoint, especially when you have the narrow sidewalks. But maybe I will put that into the next time we do council goals, no matter what the mayor thinks.
You got to get one to have one. A lot of goals going on right now. A lot of goals. All right. So with that, any more questions or discussion? All right. I would just add to this that I'm very excited to see this going through in a positive direction. Council and staff, especially staff, has done a lot of work since the Bailey Meadows, just kind of development deal that was going on there to really clean some things up within our policies and our rules and our ordinances, especially since case law changed. And just really proud of how quickly everybody moved forward in this direction to get this thing wrapped up as quickly and in as positive a fashion as they did. So with that, Jeff, are you ready? Or I know Councilor Exner did a lot of work for you to give you time there, I noticed. Should we recess or what?
So I know Emily is working diligently. Go ahead, Emily.
I can screen share and show where I made the changes and see if that reflects what Jeremy was asking for.
Sounds great.
Sure.
All right. So can you see this track changes document?
Yes.
All right. So I added fiber broadband here under 19100 0 intent, just in that list.
Thank you.
And then what, 260 was the next one? I
yeah. 17100 260.
believe. Oh man, it's a long document.
See what I was saying?
Now you can just watch me scrolling. All right, 260. So including but not limited to electrical, fiber, cable, and telephone wiring. Just added fiber and cable there.
Yep.
And under 310, started at the end, fiber broadband.
Well, I was giving it as an example because K says underground and communication lines include fiber.
Okay, so take it out of there. I didn't know if it needed to be separate or something.
Well, that was to go to the undergrounding aspect of it, but it's supposed to be included up with under like sanitary, storm, and water type of things. So that
okay, yeah,
you're the experts. You're the expert.
Well, I put it below water so that it didn't change all the other letters. Not that it really matters. It just seemed like the least. The least changed to put it at the very end. But that's what I was thinking. If we have kind of things that have to be required improvements, it is one of the improvements. I guess there could be a case maybe where there's maybe, I don't know if fiber is ever above ground, but if there's some sort of existing fiber underground, that might be a separate issue. I don't know. But
Yep, it's either above or below, just like electrical or cable.
So it makes sense to keep it there in both places. All right, so those are the changes, and then I just accepted all the changes in this document. So we have the fiber broadband. I mean, it should be correct. I think I had to change some spacing on the diagram somewhere. So that the tools and the diagrams are on the same page or whatever. But so added it there. Added it again. It shows up here. These are just accepted. And then at the very end here. So This would be the document that would be attached to the ordinance, the clean version.
I'm very impressed with your skill, and you know the document well. It sounds like you've read it a few times.
Thank you, Emily.
Just a couple, really.
All right. Well, thank you, Emily. With that, I'll call for Jeff, our city recorder, to read the ordinance by title.
Sure, and then I'll just ask really quickly, just the city attorney. So this is fine, right? In terms of, do they need to cite those 3 amended sections in the motion or not?
No, since we've got it up now and that's been shared,
Okay.
there may be a time when you'd have to read it out loud, but that's not going to be the case here.
Okay. So, okay, great, thank you. Sorry, Mayor, just a sec. Okay, so this is Ordinance 2020-24, an ordinance amending chapters 17.10, 17.84, and 17.100 of Title 17 of the Sandy Municipal Code and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Jeff. Is there a motion to approve the first reading?
Make a motion that we approve the first reading as stated.
Second.
All right.
Enough, John.
There's a motion from Councilor Peetzold, and I'd have with a second. Tie goes to the previous winner, Councilor Hamlin, with the second.
Oh.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by aye or a thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, or a thumbs down. First reading carries. With that, I will call for Jeff to read the ordinance by title a second time.
This is Ordinance 2020-24, an ordinance amending chapters 17.10, 17.84, and 17.100 of Title 17 of the Sandy Municipal Code and declaring an emergency.
Make a motion to approve the second reading.
I'll second that.
Threw you off there, didn't I, Carl?
Yeah, you did. I was thinking about the number.
Oh, Actioner was ready too. Motion by Councilor Hamlin, a second by Councilor Peetzold. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Give me a thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, or a thumbs down. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. All right, moving back to our agenda under old business, we are now going to the Code of Conduct for Boards and Commissions. Jordan, Jeff, Tyler, a lot of people have worked on this. Who wants to give the staff report?
Go ahead and take it away, Jeff.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Okay, well, as you know, the staff has been engaged in an effort for most of this year to refine and clarify the city's policies and procedures related to advisory boards and commissions. So earlier this year, we cleaned up and clarified the board membership and terms. Tonight, we're coming back to you on this subject because during our review, it came to staff's attention that Sandy actually doesn't have specific established guidelines for boards and commissions about with regard to mutual expectations, decorum, interactions with city officials and the public, and so on. You know, many other cities in Oregon do have such policies in place. And the reason they do is that volunteers on our boards and commissions, they're dedicated and talented people. They want to serve the city effectively, but sometimes it can be difficult to do so if it's not clear what's expected of them. So by providing this kind of specific guidance, the council can create consistency across the city, providing a clear set of expectations that everyone understands. So the draft code that you see tonight is actually adapted from a policy that's been in place for years at City of Tigard. And I'll just take a moment to say for the record, my thanks go out to Kent Wyatt at City of Tigard for his help providing input. They've been doing this successfully for a number of years. So the language that you see in the code is intended to reinforce that members of boards and commissions are regarded as representatives of the city. As well as the reality that the council may choose to take conduct into account when making appointment decisions. The code also provides a certification document for members to sign in the interest of reinforcing accountability. Something else to note is that none of the current bylaws of the city's boards and commissions speak to individual expectations in really any substantial way. There are two bodies, the Parks and Trails Advisory Board and the Library Advisory Board, that have roles and responsibilities documents that speak to some of the issues in the proposed code of conduct, but not all. And the remaining bodies actually have no such policies at all. So staff have reviewed it. We don't think that anything in this proposed code of conduct would conflict with the existing bylaws or roles and responsibilities documents. All of those are included in the packet for your reference though. So just really quickly on the proposed code language, it's essentially split into two sections. First, there's a section outlining board member conduct, how to treat one another, other city officials, both elected and other appointed officials, city staff, and members of the public. And then after that is a section articulating board member values. These are principles that demonstrate things like respect, integrity, and service. Some of the big issues or notable issues that are addressed in the code are things like decorum and civility, both during and outside of meetings, personal ad hominem comments, political involvement as a board member, boundaries and expectations regarding interactions with city staff. And then additionally, an issue that was brought up a few times by the council is the subject of social media communications. On page 2 of the proposed code, you'll see a language calling for, quote, courtesy, civility, and respect when participating in social media forums and providing accurate information, speaking truthfully, and representing the views and positions of the city, the council, and other individuals forthrightly and in good faith. So with that, I know this has been on the council's radar for a little bit now, so I'll stop at this point and just ask if there are any questions that staff can answer.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions from council? Councilor Lee.
I had just one. I was thinking perhaps it would be good, in addition to courteous and respectful, to act with professionalism. I don't know if that's really necessary. That was just my thought when I read it. So I'll just bring it up for discussion.
To me, that goes right with the first two words, but because of that, I have no problem adding that in. Absolutely.
Sure.
Are there any problems with adding in professionalism into that line from council? Yeah.
And which line was that, Councilor Lee? Sorry.
I see professionalism in there.
It's actually in two places. Let's see. The second place is under respect. I guess that's board member values and respect. And the other one is at the top of the next page under service. The language is pretty much the same in both places.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Thank
we can
you.
certainly make that edit.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Right, see, Councilor Exner.
Yeah, a couple of them, and for some reason I can't seem to find the exact location of the two comments I was thinking of. One was under gifts. It says absolutely no. I think that's what I kind of took from that statement. No gifts or compensation at all. And I don't know, I'll just be confessing here that, you know, there have been times when it's been tough for me to buy my coffee because people seem to want to do that. What's the limitation of what that gifts might be? And I get the part about, you know, deposits in savings accounts and cars and all that kind of stuff. But where does the line kind of get scratched? And I would say there's probably a line there someplace when you get into a spot where a cup of coffee is not something that would be considered an inappropriate gift.
Depends on how good that cup of coffee is, right? No.
Well, I mean, there's already been, it's been put in the Oregon Ethics Commission. I mean, there are guidelines on, you know, how much you can accept from people who live in your house versus non in your house per year. Should we just, instead of saying no gifts, should we just literally, can we cite like the Oregon Ethics Commission or, you know what I mean? Like it's in the league of, or there's rules, guidelines for public officials in Oregon.
Sure.
And I think it's around $50.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dave,
the
is there a
technical,
way that would look, you know what I mean? Is there, what would be referenced there for that?
was that a question to me, Mayor? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah. Sorry, David. Yeah.
That's okay. I think exactly approaching it where you're basically referring back to compliance with, you know, ethics statutes and rules just sort of reinforces that this does exist. The state regulates it. And, you know, frankly, as an appointed official, if this needs some polish in terms of how this is rolled out as a matter of practice, we could do that. But once they're appointed, then there should be that sort of, okay, now you're a public official and here are these ethics rules that bind you. The OGEC, the Government Ethics Commission, does have some really good handouts with respect to that. So the city could put a stricter limit and say no gifts, period. But Carl, the way we generally look at gifts is in a pretty conservative way, because some of the opinions from the Ethics Commission have been very, very narrow when basically anybody that might have sort of an interest in something that a board or a commission does, and that's very broadly interpreted by the state, should be, unless it falls into an exemption, should be treated as a gift, and it is that $50 per year, per calendar year.
Sure. And $50 is pretty reasonable to me. Sometimes make a statement that really is hard to measure makes it difficult, and and I wouldn't want some people challenging somebody because out of spite that you accepted a cup of coffee for, I guess it's $3 now, so coffee's getting pretty expensive. But that would be something that somebody could take and challenge. I like the idea of the $50, or actually referring to the states or the League of Oregon's Code of Ethics. I think that works for me.
Can we do that, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Sure.
And then the second place that I had, I took it from the Art Commission's desire for their bylaw changes. And this one is on page 3 under service. It says make every effort to attend meetings. That's another one of those, it's sort of hard to judge. Is it something, make every effort is 50%, 25%, 100%? And I'd like to suggest that 75% be kind of the rule of thumb, if you may, for attending meetings. And once it becomes below that, then it seems like it's tough for you to be able to participate when you're not attending at least that much. So I would suggest 75%.
Sorry, Counselor. I would just offer that many of the bodies address this issue more specifically in their own bylaws. And so this is sort of more of a statement of general principle. But usually each body will have a more specific standard in its own bylaws.
So you're saying we can relate to or understand this one as defined by parks, art, library, all those that have their own, even though some may not?
Correct, Counselor. I would give you an example. Like we have, we have our charter, but we have our council rules, right? And in our council rules, it specifies the meetings, how many you got to be to. So these all have their own bylaws, which go into those more specifics. Well, not all of them have their own bylaws, but we're working our way towards that.
Okay.
They all have, if they don't have their bylaws, they've got rules and regulations. And again, this is just a general code of conduct. So I'm okay with not having specifics.
Okay, I'll stand amended. Sure.
Okay.
That's it for me.
All right. Thank you, Counselor. With that, not seeing further discussion, just great work by staff. Thank you for this. It's something that we've been working on for the last year and a half since our goal setting. We talked about trying to just button some of these things up. So really appreciate all the work that's been done on this. With that, is there a motion to adopt the code of conduct?
Make a motion to adopt the code of conduct.
Second.
David, Jeff, do they need to talk about any of the amendments?
Not for this, since it's not being done by ordinance, just a policy. That's fine. Did you get a chance to make those changes to them?
I made note of the changes, and we'll post it as amended.
That works.
And so I had a motion from Counselor Smallwood and a second from Counselor Lee. Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
Yep. All those in favor signify by saying aye or give me a thumbs up.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, or a thumbs down. Motion carries.
Thanks everybody for your work on that.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks, Lori, for spearheading it.
Yes. With that, let's go to our city manager report. Jordan.
All right, thanks, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I just wanted to talk about the wildfire and debrief it a little bit with the council. We'll have a staff debrief this week, actually, with the police department and the fire district as well on Wednesday. But I just want to kind of recap it for the council. It's been another crisis that we were sort of going through the last couple of weeks. I know it impacted a lot of you and of course our residents and our neighbors. So I wanted to start with thanking our police department, who with Lieutenant Landry and Chief Roberts' leadership did a great job of communicating, staying up to date on what the information is coming out from the county and from the Forest Service and then the federal incident team. But they did a really good job of staying on top of it and a really good strategy to just provide, regular updates. And on top of that, they were working, basically around the clock to keep our community safe. So all officers were on standby. They went to 12-hour shifts, and they were out there visible, being seen, making sure people were safe and kind of understood what was going on. So I think it was Officers Craven and Thornton were the PIOs during the event, and they did a great job during that week. Also, thank you to our Public Works Department. They, if we remember, September has been a long month already, but they're preceding this fire event was a storm, that kind of started this, right? And so we had the public safety shutdown of our electricity, not in Sandy, but down the corridor towards Mount Hood that did affect us at our water treatment plants. And then the storm itself created a lot of power outages, a lot of branches and debris. So our public works staff were putting in a lot of extra time doing that cleanup and responding to the needs of our treatment plants to keep them operational without power. So, of course, we have generators and all that kicked in, but there was a lot of manual work that went into that. So thanks to them. And I think I sent a note from Greg about SandyNet being impacted, and there was a lot of our customers that were impacted by the power outages and also fiber breaks. And so they've been working hard to get that reestablished. So there's a lot of just, stuff behind the scenes that goes on during these events. And that, was from, a lot of that was from the storm. And then of course we had the wildfire that created this, really stressful, chaotic situation about the evacuations. Of course, Estacada was significantly impacted with the level 3. We had a lot of evacuees coming into our town. And I know a lot of, the mayor and council members and a lot of our community members really stepped up to assist with our neighbors, from Estacada, and also just right outside of town is where the level 3 came up to. So that community support was, really just tremendous to see, sort of the relief stations being set up. And SandyNet set up Wi-Fi at some of those places to help people get internet access. But for a couple of days there, there was a lot of stress, a lot of uncertainty about the changing conditions. And I think, we saw our role as just trying to get the communication out about what was happening and trying to keep people calm, but informed. So, this is mainly a chance to say thank you to our first responders and our community members that were all part of this response. We also had the impact of the smoke. So I just found out that I think the all-time record in Portland for air quality was something like 150 a few years ago with the Eagle Creek fire. And Sandy and the metro area was over 500 for a few days. is incredibly hazardous. And so we had, our facilities actually were being, as commercial buildings with kind of older systems, they were being infiltrated. And so we had staff that were donning the N95s and doing what they can to keep the city operational. And we've been scrubbing the air, and fortunately we're back to operations. But that was another thing that, as we're handling this communication, this information, a lot of people either evacuated or coming back home were dealing with smoke. Chalk it up to another 2020, what's going on. We're almost there. We're getting close to the last quarter here. But also, this opportunity to, if you had any questions about the response and how these sort of emergencies are managed, we're happy to answer that. I think Chief Roberts is still on, or he may be available. But like I said, we will be debriefing as a city agency this week, and then there will be debriefings. I think regionally with other cities and with the county too. There were some hiccups along the way, as you guys can imagine. And some things about communication and the EOC that I think we have, some stuff to talk about with the agencies involved. But we're looking forward to doing that. But in the meantime, I just kind of wanted to give a recap on that. Thank you for your support. I think I appreciate when you guys recognize that we're handling something that's kind of just unfolding in real time as we try. At first, we were just getting the information as it came out about the evacuations and trying to get that information out to our residents. And this day and age, it's all social media. And fortunately, we have built up a really good following on Facebook with a huge following. So that was a really key tool that we were able to use, but also just trying to redirect people to where the right information is coming. Trying to handle rumors was another challenge. And making sure that our phone lines had information on it when people called, so they got messages about what was happening. So again, thanks for your support. Hopefully everyone's back and the house is clear of smoke and the skies are turning more blue. But this might be something that could be happening more in the future as these type of almost Santa Ana-like winds affect our region. So a good practice, well, not a practice for a lot of people, but a good test run for us in handling this type of crisis.
Well, Jordan, I'll jump in, and I see Councilor Peatsold has a hand up. I'll just say, and I keep going back to our goal setting, and I think I talk for all of council when I say this. When we're sitting around and we're talking about getting a better communication strategy or our expectations for different departments, it's a pretty proud moment. At least it was for me as mayor, and I think for a lot of councilors, when we saw staff jump into action in an emergency crisis situation like this. The communication level coming from the city, from all of you and your team was amazing. Seeing our police officers involved, not just in policing, but in relief efforts as well, and being in the community was awesome. Not a direct city department, but obviously our firefighters, as a great partner, incredible. It's just public works, Sandy Net, and creating the hot spots everywhere. I mean, it was all the way. I know our folks at the community center were working nonstop on relief and different issues with a lot of the people that they deal with every day. It was to sit here and watch you and your team and all of our team members in the city work during this. That's a proud moment, especially for me. So I just wanted to definitely say that in this meeting. So
thank you.
Councilor Pizza.
Yeah, I just echo what the mayor said for sure for me, but I had another question. I hadn't heard anything, and maybe I missed it somewhere, but Bluff Road was shut down for like a week. And the windstorm, drive by now and you see those lines, and then I go, man, I'm glad I fought for Sandy Net fiber inside the city limits to be underground, right, Greg? Greg's on here. But for inside the city limits, that saved us a big chore. But what exactly happened on Bluff there? it looks like Lori knows. I had heard one rumor, but I don't want to start any rumors if it wasn't true. So I'd like to hear from the source.
I actually was the first responder to arrive on that incident, so I can give you a detailed synopsis. Basically, as the wind came up the gorge there, right at Johnsford Viewpoint, blew at least 4 complete power poles over because there was nothing obstructing them. So, which of course took out all those lines. And then with the ongoing storm and then the level 2 for the city of Sandy, crews of course couldn't work on those. So it took almost a week, I believe, for people in that Kelso Bluff area to get their power restored. So pretty impressive. Mother Nature is, she'll do what she wants. So.
And those are big poles too. It's not like they were just little ones in the ground there. Those were deep in the ground. So
wow. and really, PG, and I don't know if our Public Works Department had anything to do with it as far as working in that area, but I think we're on top of it and got everything back up as fast as they could, considering all of the conditions and factors they were working with. So.
And that's a transmission line of power from the Portland Water Bureau, so that affected everybody's power as it went to the transfer station in Sandy. So.
Yep.
Wow. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Jordan? Councilor Exner.
Just a real short comment. I don't want to do any more than just echo what the mayor and all have been saying. Just one more thing to kind of remember, or at least know of, that since I am across the street from Avamere, I think I saw 6 big school buses parked out in front as they were evacuating the entire Avamere because of the senior citizens and all the things that you can imagine, health issues as well as concerns for if we were to go to a level 3. I just appreciate all that. It seemed like there's just so many things that were happening during that time. Not only was the staff on excellence and doing the things that they needed to and above and beyond, we had many, many people within the city that were inviting people from the Estacada country to come in and stay. The buses shifting people out that were in dire health issues. It was an amazing, very, very busy week's worth of effort here in Sandy. Lots of things going on. So thank you from my side too.
Thank you. Yeah, indeed. And that's part of the work too of what Lundry and his team are doing, is reaching out to those facilities and make sure they were set and had everything they needed. And I should add that we had a lot of businesses and residents reach out to us, city officials, saying, how can we help? I can house evacuees, I have equipment. So that was super impressive, and also something that, we have a resource list that we were jotting down and keeping track of. So we know we have a lot of folks out there that we can turn to in times of need. So that was again, great to see. Thank you. That's all I have tonight. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Jordan. I know it's been a long week. Well, last week was. This is a new one. Yeah. Councilor Schultz.
Yeah. The library is one of the buildings that was filled with smoke last week, so they had to shut down for a little while there. But they're back open as of, I think, yesterday for curbside service. And then also starting today, they're opening about 3 hours every day of the week for computers. So if you need to use a computer, you can reserve a time slot and come into the library to do that. It's something that we've, heard a lot, that people really rely on the library for computer usage. So really excited that we could get that service back up and going, at least in a limited capacity. And then I was wondering, I know that the conversation around safety for our employees was discussed last time, and it's kind of an internal conversation. I'm wondering if we could maybe plan on having a goal for before it's too dark at night to sort of get some of those safety measures in place for, I know I never felt super comfortable walking out after council meetings, and I assume it's similar for employees. Just some more lighting back there or something in our parking lot, more plans in place for safety when people are encountered by angry citizens out in work. I would just like us to see some plans in place for what we're going to do for this sort of stuff. And then specifically, I guess as the fall and winter hit, like if we could be more proactive about what that will look like for people walking out to their car.
Yeah, actually, Tyler and I were just talking about that today, and we did have a conversation last week about it. And we're getting quotes on some of those things and checking into the lighting too, because we're getting all the LEDs switched out. So we were going to check the inventory to see if that was already planned. But there's a couple areas I think to look at for adding light. But we're also getting quotes on, as part of, if you remember the facilities assessment, the key card access, and then more secured access down there for the downstairs entrance. But the other part of that is we are getting a block grant for ADA access at City Hall, which will electrify that door as well. So trying to sync up how to do that the most cost-effective way to do some security measures now, and then use that grant for the ADA door openings. So yeah, and we'll continue to keep you posted on those plans. So thank you for the comments and the reminder.
Okay, sounds good. My next thing is playgrounds are open now under the governor's new orders, which is great, but our tot lots are still locked. So that's less great. And we could get on that quickly, because it's really sad to see your 3-year-old like pulling on the gate and it's all like padlocked. Really, really sad. So we could get on that soon. That would be fabulous.
It's only a few more days of sunny weather.
Exactly.
Unlock the gates. Unlock the gates.
There's like a chain on one of them. It's pretty sad.
Can we get a video from the other side of your daughter sitting there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Take that weather forecast you just threw out back.
All right, I'll take it back.
Well, what are we supposed to do during PE, right? We need those playgrounds.
Exactly.
Yeah, my kids are running around the block a few times.
Yeah.
I know we have the signs that we're putting up tomorrow, so I'll make sure that they're unlocked too. Sorry, I thought they were. But...
Sounds good. And then I just wanted to say that I'm sad about all of the Arts Commission resignations, and I'm hopeful that this is something we can learn from. I feel like we basically penalize people for following the rules and the protocols that we had in place. And they did it the correct way, and then we sort of went back on it. And I don't know, it's sad, and it happened. So moving forward, what can we do to have that not happen again? And when people are passionate about something and we tell them to run with it, I think we should go with it. That's all I'll say about that. And then again, yeah, thanks so much to Jordan and everyone on staff. You guys did an amazing job all through that really stressful time. And I think a lot of people were tuning in to every update, and it just alleviates so much anxiety every time you guys posted something, whatever it was, just to let us know that people are working on it. We know what's going on. Our homes are safe. The police are working on it. That was really great and really appreciated by everyone, I think. So thank you. And that's all.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Exner.
Yeah, Bethany kind of took a little bit of my firepower here. I don't want to go too far into it, but I also am saddened by the resignations of the Art Commission. It just seems like all the politics and the things that we went through. It was a kind of a formative commission anyway. It really wasn't experienced going through like some of the planning commission. They've got some people who have really been through some hardening, veteran, grizzled kinds of activities and interactions between some disgruntled citizens and maybe even some disgruntled planning people. But so this commission kind of took it to heart, and they were really pretty concerned about it. I was reading again and have had a chance to talk with almost all of them that have resigned. I will finish that up, but they were concerned about the politics, of course, and the fact that they were looking at what's going to happen probably, I know with council, I mean, thinking that we want to get more people within the city limits on those seats. And that's pretty much the resignations, not entirely all of them. But so we still have a quorum remaining. We have 4 commissioners left over, but 3 of them did resign. So pretty minimal, although the next few months is going to be a lot of holidays, and since they only meet once a month, we've been kind of chatting about maybe waiting until we get the board back up to full strength again before we make the next set of meetings, kind of get that back in this to thought. We also have the master plan for the art that the councils said they want to go forward with. There's a lot of conversation around that. So I think that it might be something worth thinking about how much that commission needs to meet and those kind of things. So maybe as we work our way through Jordan, maybe Tyler and I and you could get that thought through. Other thing that was brought up almost by everybody was the idea about the donations for the mural. A lot of folks would like to see a resolution of that rather than just keep it in savings or in a fund, something like that. Find out where
they've been given a process. They've been given a process from Tyler that I was copied on exactly what to do with those funds and a couple of different options.
That I missed out on that one, then I didn't see it, so I'll have to take a look again. So I'm glad that we do a process. I want to make sure it's legal and make sure that it's correct.
Can that be shared to the rest of the council, because I wasn't aware of it either?
Yeah, absolutely, it should be. Yeah.
Okay, I will have to go look at my inbox. I guess I missed that one. All right, leave the negative. I want to just really say thanks for the folks that did the movies in the park. It was full. I know a couple folks were kind of disappointed they couldn't make it because they waited the last moment to sign up, and those movies were all just filled up. So good job in doing that, trying to put together a city function that brings people together. I like that idea. And I don't know if we can do something between now and whenever the state decides to give us a chance to open the city back up again with all the weather and the late nights, maybe not, but as a positive thing, I think that's something that I'm sure glad that we did that. And then finally, I'm an old forester, and fire prevention is really a big thing for me. I'm just wondering if there wouldn't be some sort of fire strategy that we could do, not just so much in people. Certainly, our fire department is on top of the things about attacking and being strategized and positioned and so on. But I'm also thinking about vegetation separation, fire breaks, and locations of different maybe risks. I know that there were some fields that were still left mowed down during those times, and I was when I saw those, I thought, oh, my heart is kind of up in my throat about whether or not that might take off somebody through a match or something, backed up with a car or something in some of those fields, and we end up with a fire that would be on top of all the other fires we had. So maybe thinking about how this fire strategy might happen in this time of the year in the upcoming future might be important to look at too. So other than that, I just again want to say thank you to our staff and our city, all the folks that just pitched in. It just amazes me how many people really got involved and how good we are to each other. No matter how many things we disagree about, the politics, the elections, and whatever else is coming down the path, I appreciate when people really get into a high-risk situation like we just went through. Thank you for being a good neighbor. And with that, that's it.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Lee.
Yes, our transit meeting was canceled last week due to smoke, but we'll be meeting again soon. And Emily and I have both been attending the 6-city cohort on climate action. So that's coming along pretty well. And I really just want to thank everyone because I felt safe after reading emails on a regular basis from Jordan, from the police department, and especially want to thank Chief Roberts and his staff and the fire department and Lori specifically. And I really appreciated the chief meeting with the federal folks and keeping the team together. It was really a great process all in all. And that's all I have to say.
Hear, hear. Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Hamlin.
Yeah, I'll just echo a lot of the sentiment we've heard already around the city. Great communication as well, too. Just a couple things. I know that we are not the trash and recycling picker-uppers, but there was a lot of confusion with the day delay. I've had a number of folks get in touch with me. We're ones where our recycling's still sitting out front. It's supposed to be a day later. And then I saw the guy driving by on Friday, our normal day. And I said, hey, what's going on? He said, I had a little extra room, so I decided to run through. But then I guess he must have ran out of room because our recycling's still here. And we're definitely 2 cans a week recycling family. But we fit it all into 1 can, believe it or not. And so I don't know if we could reach out to them and just check in to see what the story is. And then I also, kind of a 2-part question, down by the skate park, there was a tree that had fallen on a power line, and it was coned off. Section of road was closed for a while, but the logs are still on the ground after it's been cut down now. And I've had a number of folks asking me, is it okay if we take that wood? We've got a fireplace, or we're gonna just grab that wood and saw it up and use it for firewood. Obviously not right now. But if that's okay for folks to do. And then secondly, if not, we still have a lot of branches in our neighborhood, and I know that the smoke really hit hard. And we were in a level 2 evacuation on the day that we were gonna do the branch drop off down at Public Works. If that still happened, I wasn't aware, but if we did have a reschedule opportunity for that too.
So we haven't rescheduled the storm debris recycling or chipping, but we will. So we'll set a date for that, hopefully soon, because people don't want to keep this stuff on the property for too long. The wood is a good question. David might have the legal answer to that, because if it is public property, there is value in that wood, right, David? So I don't know if we have to do a process to bid it out or anything like that.
But I know that on the highway, when they do clearing on the side of the highway, it's kind of open.
Is it?
I don't know that they necessarily post something, but this is like in a residential neighborhood, and there's a number of trees, and I mean they're pretty decent sized trees on the ground. And I'm sure somebody would put it to use. It's just whether or not it's okay or not.
Free firewood.
Yeah, I don't think in this case that it's something that would need to go through a surplus property thing. You're basically just trying to clean up, so I don't see an issue there.
Okay, great. Free firewood.
I love that advice, David.
Way to do it.
And then on the garbage recycling, there was a lot of confusion. I actually been in contact with them about another issue with the cleanup days, or the personalized cleanup days. So I will bring this up as well. I'll give them a call about just better communication about what to expect. I think as the kind of lingered, I mean, I had the same issue. I think a lot of people have the same issue about garbage cans is sitting in the street. You don't know when it's going to be picked up, because they said just keep it out there, but a little bit more of setting the expectations and communicating would be better.
Yeah, he drove by me today and waved, and I thought he was coming back around, but he never came back around. So wish I would have known. Cool. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Smallwood.
All right, thanks. Well, Counselor Hamlin, what they did with your recycling, they did with my garbage. So my garbage is still in the street. They picked up the recycling and the yard debris, though. I'm also deeply disappointed about the Arts Commission and the way that has transpired, but I think we've talked enough about that tonight. I just wanted to get my 2 cents in. I would like to give, aside from city staff, because I think you guys have gotten a lot of kudos for the fire, but just a huge round of applause for everybody in the community, between Sandy, Estacada, Malala, Eagle Creek, Welch's, all of the areas of people who really stepped up, offered, whether it was equipment or someplace to stay or food, clothing, all of those things. Just a fantastic community support and involvement. Super exciting to be part of such a great community. And also, and I might be stealing a little bit of the mayor's thunder, I don't know, but I also wanted to give a shout out to Sandy Helping Hands, because what a great turnout they had. I believe the last count that I saw was they may have supplied food to around 9,000 people, and that is amazing. So what a great organization, what a great group of individuals and people that volunteer for them. So kudos to them as well. 2020 has been crazy. I hope 2021 is not going to show it up. So, but yeah, as Jordan said earlier, we're almost done with it, and that's all I've got.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Peetzold.
Yeah, everyone's stealing everybody else's thunder on here, but you know, the night is getting long, so I won't say everything there. But again, shout out to everyone in our community. Man, I've never seen so many travel trailers and RVs in everybody's parking lot and fields and just everywhere around us, and so that just speaks, you know, volumes for our community of, you know, adopting people into our community and then others adopting part of our community into theirs as we kept on migrating, trying to migrate out of the smoke and the fire aspect of that. Thanks to Public Works and the fire and police. I know on that one stormy day, it was super windy and I had to go emergency call down to our data center in Clackamas. And I was like, what am I doing out here? This is really crazy. The wind and everything, the trees and branches. And it was like, maybe this isn't the smartest thing, but I had to go down there for an emergency. And then on the way back at 2:30 in the morning, I was just amazed at how it either blew away or, you know, they got some stuff cleared up. But it was great to see everyone out working. Again, I'm grateful that we have our fiber underground in town, and I know Greg is too, so he doesn't have to deal with the in-city stuff. So we'll keep doing that as underground thing goes. Thanks, the Hood Street and Bluff and Hood right there. I've been asking for over 2 years for that sidewalk that Zayo had broken up and put in their conduit underground, and they had missed that. And so they have finally repaved that. So I appreciate Mike or whomever that got on the case of Zayo to go ahead and pave that, or maybe we not paved it, but concreted it in, and maybe we did and sent them the bill. I don't know which happened there, but appreciate that. We didn't have the last econ meeting right around the vacation time for everybody. We're planning here in the first week of October for that to happen. OBAC will be happening here soon, and one of their things is to talk about what we kind of experienced, myself with our data center, SandyNet, the fires, and everything that was going on. We've planned so much in Oregon for this abduction zone, yet we live right in all this forest. And so all the EOCs and everything we think about is all about what happens if the big one hits. You know, what are we going to do? But the big one wasn't the earthquake this time. It was literally the forest fires that has created quite havoc. And then not only that, the infrastructure that went in place. So we have it really well here in Sandy. We really, really do. You know, if you think of Estacada and Colton, Malala, or outside Salem, a lot of those places not only burnt, but maybe they didn't burn, but the fiber or whatever going to the cell phone towers everywhere they're at are down. And so they can't even call out emergency-wise radios and trying to get that done. So there's a big look at from the Oregon Broadband Advisory Council and others to identify and go, you know, we just don't need to think about the subduction zone, but other types of catastrophes like this. So it's a wake-up call, small one, so that we can, as a region, plan for that. And again, school got pushed back a week. My kids, you know, I don't know if they enjoyed being trapped in their house and not being able to get out, but they started today. And so a lot of online classes, and normally this time of year, we're talking about watch out for the kids on the road and the buses and things like that, slow down, but maybe slow down. There's going to be a lot of kids out there trying to do their online PE, running around the block like my kids are this morning early on before, you know, school started, and others like that. So, but sure glad, again, we have the ability here in Sandy to have internet that's great. inside our town. I know I get to watch all these schools all over the county and some of the grief and heartache they have with trying to do Zoom and Google Meets and everything else. And their infrastructure is not the same. You know, their upload speeds are killing them. And a household of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 kids, plus mom and dad working. And hats off to the parents that are home having to play teacher slash, you know, career or whatever else. You know, it's a tough gig. And so I think a little grace and patience with our own city staff. I know you guys are doing that. And hopefully with it, wherever else people are working, they have, because it's hard when you're taking your kid to school and it's, you know, right next to you in your house and you're trying to get them to figure out Zoom and Meets. But out to the public too, please stick with it. We'll get through this, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate it. I think we've all talked a lot about staff and the wildfires tonight. Goes without saying, did an incredible job. One thing on the relief centers that hasn't brought up that I don't think enough people talk about is, and I know a lot of you know this, you go to events in Sandy and it's always the exact same people and doing everything. And this time we had a lot of those same people, but we had a lot of new people and different people. One of them is Brad Magden, a local Sandy guy, reached out to me the morning after the evacuations, had worked out stuff with Les Schwab and some different food procurements. An unbelievable individual. And then he ran over and did the same thing in Estacada. So very much an unsung hero that really kicked off the efforts and really kept it going. And I could go all day about the local businesses and service organizations. But, you know, just want to spend a second on Les Schwab, because I don't think a lot of people realize what that business, local business, did for our community and surrounding communities. It wasn't just that they offered their location. They did that. And of course, you know, Les Schwab, you've got cars coming and going. So them doing their location is important. But they were also out there with their forklifts, loading and unloading food out of their refrigerated container. Their employees doing that. They were there far into the evening doing that. The owner, Bill, had secured through connection with Hood to Coast and the Sunshine Division a lot of the food boxes and stuff. So, I mean, we're talking about a business whose employees and their management just went above and beyond. So thank you to them. So glad that Sandy Helping Hands and our community was all able to step up. It was really an unprecedented community effort. On that, just wanted to say a thank you to the school district. That's been a partnership, I think, that has grown stronger over the course of the last couple of years. They really stepped up with partnership opportunities. I saw that we got a grant to get even closer. We're closer with them on school pickup and drop off, and just looking for that relationship to continue to grow stronger. I'm not going to go through all of our elected officials who called me or didn't call me, but I will say I was very impressed with Congressman Earl Blumenauer. The day after the evacuation, he called first thing in the morning. By the next morning, we had a coffee scheduled, and we were sitting down with Mayor Sean Drinkwine and him to talk about federal assistance, what FEMA was doing or not doing, same with the Red Cross, and then long-term recovery conversations. You know, a lot of what's not talked about is regionally, we now qualify for one of only 2 bills that passed through the United States Congress, one of them being disaster relief. So strategically, that is something that we need to be talking about as a region with resiliency and all kinds of other items. On that, Senator Merkley's office also reached out, and I had an opportunity to talk to his office, not just about some of the wildfire stuff, but about WIFIA. And so we're going through our WIFIA process again for wastewater. They're going to be kind of the coordinating federal representative for us, dealing with the other congressional offices. We've already been in communication with some of our staff and Murray Smith and our consultants. So we're really happy to hear about the progress and how much we're on the radar screen for that. Quickly on Arts Commission, it's been mentioned. It is extremely unfortunate that we've had a couple of members resign. I just wanted to spend a quick second talking about everything that they've done. Takes more than just what I'm going to give them tonight, their impact that they've had on our community through a lot of the restoration projects and other items they've done over the last year and a half. A lot of community members speak up and complain, and they took action, and they've had an enormous impact on our community. And I, for one, am tremendously grateful, as I know our other counselors are, for all of the work. And they're frustrated by the politics. So is your mayor. I mean, I am too. And I feel really, it's really unfortunate that the direction that this particular project went. And I think we all, on all sides, learned a lot from this that we hope to improve, me especially. I talked to Ryan, our regional director with ODOT. I've heard from Councilor Exner just too many times on these lights. Just wanted to make sure they weren't going to make a fool of all of us, especially me, on this. And I was very much rest assured. And I followed with Jordan, and they'd had some conversations as well, I think, between ODOT and staff. But very much, the timing is very much on the radar screen. This thing's going to happen relatively quickly. I understand I'm talking about ODOT, so why Councilor Exner, I use relatively, but I do believe in my heart this thing is going to happen at a pretty good pace afterwards. One thing I wanted to bring up is Tyler's report on finances. You may have seen we're starting to accumulate nearly around $75,000 and in what individuals owe in past utility expenses. You know, we have that relief going on. It's something that's going to have, it's a growing issue. I think that's going to be something that we're all going to have to figure out and address. One thing, and Tyler, you don't have to have an answer for this, but right under that in your report, you had talked about the COVID relief for businesses that we did. I'm curious, maybe it's a non-starter, but you know, since we were able to do COVID relief for businesses, maybe we could do some kind of program for utility assistance that might also be able to go underneath a federal, you know, kind of COVID relief application or something. I don't know, but something to look into. We've got to figure out a solution to this because I don't think these folks are going to have the money right away. Were you going to say something? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just trying to not have my child scream when I unmute myself. Sorry. It's definitely something that we're looking into as far as creative funding opportunities and reimbursement options for us to create a new grant. So still some legwork to do, but it's on our radar for sure.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you for having that updated report. Very appreciated. A final note, Council, you'll I've seen that on our next work session, we're going to be talking about the Sandy Chamber of Commerce. Jordan sent a little bit of a proposal that they had sent on to Jordan and I after the meeting that we kind of reported back to you on, I think at our last meeting. We have a couple follow-up questions to that, so we're going to have a follow-up meeting with them prior to our next work session, so hopefully we'll be armed with a little bit more information there. But please do kind of read up on that and be thinking through, you know, the importance of a chamber organization in our community and just different ways you'd like to see the chamber evolve or not evolve, or just be thinking about that issue, because it is something that we're going to have to think through, talk about, and come to some decisions on in a relatively short order. So with that, that's my report tonight. Thank you, everybody. I am going to get us adjourned here. I wanted 8, then my goal is 8:30. I'm going to have to settle for 8:35. So thank you, everybody. I'll adjourn tonight's meeting.